Welcome everyone, Project Veritas, Wall of Shame, yada yada yada, printing the retractions and corrections. Everyone constantly lies about us, so many retractions. We're going to need a bigger wall.
You're going to need a bigger boat.
Today's retraction goes to the Daily Beast. The Daily Beast reporter, the byline, his name is Arya Hodjat, breaking news intern. Breaking news intern? I didn't realize there was such a thing. I wouldn't want the breaking news person to be an intern. In this Daily Beast article, now updated, in this Daily Beast article, Hodjat writes, quote, Project Veritas, the right-wing group known for its deceptively edited videos, apparently attempting to dupe the Washington Post into reporting false information about then Alabama Senate candidate Roy Moore, has close ties to the Trump family. Got it wrong. Daily Beast updated the article, and it read, quote, after publication, an attorney for Project Veritas strenuously denied that it is right-wing or partisan, or that it has ever deceptively edited a video or attempted to dupe the Washington Post. As I've said before, we use a variety of aliases to meet with people. That is our MO. We've posed as pimps, telephone technicians, donors, Muslim Brotherhood agents, pizza delivery boy.
Did you order a pizza? Boom.
Flower delivery people, we never actually intend to do these things. We don't intend to actually traffic underage hookers or repair your telephone or practice Sharia law. We say these things in order to get meetings with people and get them to open up to us. Pretty clear as day. Our MO is pretty clear. But whenever we get blown or compromised in an undercover investigation, the media jumps to wild conclusions and accusations about what our intent was. So our attorneys send a letter to the general counsel of the Daily Beast, one Neil Rosenhaus. Neil Rosenhaus responds and says, I am general counsel of the Daily Beast. How proud is he? And he says, the Daily Beast stands by the posting in question, which contains no libelous factual statements and is fully protected by the First Amendment. Nevertheless, we have updated it to note your objections. So even though it's false, it's protected by the First Amendment. But even the original Washington Post article talking about what we did, this is from 3 years ago, and a headline from the Washington Post that read, a woman approached the Post with a dramatic tale about Roy Moore. She appears to be part of an undercover sting operation. Even the text in that original article talked about our intentions. The Washington Post article said, quote, during the interviews, she repeatedly pressed reporters to give their opinions on the effects of her claims would have on the candidacy. But this so-called off-the-record conversation was the essence of a scheme to deceive and embarrass us. The intent by Project Veritas clearly was to publicize the conversation. That was it. Our intent going undercover in the Washington Post was to publish conversations. Now, whether that embarrasses someone or not, that's the sort of raison d'etre behind investigative reporting, is to, show people talking. Now, if that is embarrassing to the Washington Post, well, I guess that's on them. Much of what we report is embarrassing to people. That's not our problem. That's the problem of the person making the statements. These people are always trying to say that basic tenets of television journalism that everyone has done since Walter Cronkite and Mike Wallace and everyone else, that's somehow a deceptive edit, and every time they make that argument, a federal judge bitch slaps them. Because at the end of the day, it's not about selective editing or deceptive editing or planting false stories. It's about the incontrovertible and irrefutable nature of our cinema verite. That's what it's really about. It's about power. And that's why the Daily Beast was forced to update their article. Well, that's why Arya Hodjat, breaking news intern, what is that? I wouldn't want the breaking news person to be an intern. And as far as going undercover and using a disguise and saying you're a victim and how immoral that might be, just remember Günter Wallraff. He was the legendary German undercover reporter who went into the Bild in the 1970s. He actually got a job working at the Bild in order to expose the Bild, Germany's largest newspaper. No one thinks what Gunter did was unethical. Nobody in contemporary times attacks Gunter Wallraff's morality of doing that because they empathized with his political agenda. He had a workers' rights agenda. He wanted the Bild employees to strike. And they empathized with his agenda. What we were trying to do with Jamie Phillips at the Washington Post was expose the Washington Post's bias. And because they don't want us to do that, because they think there's nothing wrong with the Washington Post, that's why they have a problem with what we did. But as I wrote in my op-ed, which I submitted to Marty Baron at the Washington Post, and they never published 3 years ago, I wrote there was actually a long story of using aliases by legitimate journalists. That reminds me of Jacob Ogage, credible journalists.
I should mention that Mr. Hopkins this evening, with Project Veritas, a right-wing group that has tried to run sting operations against credible journalists and catch them in errors. Credible journalists.
Credible journalists. Jacob Ogage, Washington Post. Credible journalists. Legitimate. Even when he says it, you can hear the hubris. You can hear the condescending tone when Ogage says credible journalists. But those credible journalists throughout history did all the things that we do and then some. These journalists, like at the Chicago Sun-Times, who went undercover they had a bar aptly named The Mirage. There's actually a book about it called The Mirage. And they purchased a bar and went undercover for 6 months. And all these people resigned in Chicago for shady dealings. They were denied a Pulitzer by Ben Bradley, who said, quote, "How can a newspaper fight for honesty and integrity when they themselves are less than honest in getting a story?" I wrote in my op-ed, Bradley's exalted standard may be legitimate when it comes to deciding who should and who should not win a Pulitzer. But while they may have failed to win the profession's highest honor, it is worth noting that reporters who pose as waitresses and bartenders were also not sanctioned, condemned, drummed out of the profession, or denied the label journalists. These people posed as waitresses and bartenders and put hidden cameras in a bar in Chicago for months. Far more elaborate a deception than anything Project Veritas has ever done. But we call them journalists. There's no actual distinction between what they do and what we do, except what they do is more extreme. I also wrote in this op-ed, our methods may skirt or sometimes cross a perceived ethical line, but what is ethics? The beauty and bane of ethics is that it's inherently situational. It completely depends upon whether the audience or the subject thinks that what you're exposing needs to be exposed. And because none of us agree upon that, our opponents are going to label anything we do as unethical because they don't agree with the fact we are exposing. I wrote, in our view, they are amply justified by the urgency of the circumstances and the health of our culture overall. There is an electronic civil war going on over fake news. From our perspective, the big tech companies and the mainstream media are the most important public policy issue in the history of the United States. We must go undercover into the Washington Post. We must go undercover into Google and into Twitter and into Facebook and into CNN and into the New York Times. There is nothing more important than that. Going undercover into the Washington Post is more important than going undercover in a bar in Chicago to expose a couple city inspectors. All of this could be avoided, all of it, if you just stuck to the facts. Instead, you had to update your article. And now you get this. You get this. You are engaging in an unethical behavior that you attribute to us. You deceptively edited your article. You selectively edit. You are deceiving your audience. At Project Veritas, the #1 rule on our website, our ethics policy, is we never deceive our audience. Yes, we may use disguise. We may pretend to be victims, pimps, hookers, drug dealers, Muslim Brotherhood agents, telephone technicians, pizza delivery boy, flower delivery boy, you name it, we'll do it. But it's in order to tell the truth to the audience. See, it's a question of relative deception. Do you want to deceive your subjects or deceive your audience? We must tell the truth to our audience. That's what we do. What you do is deceive your audience, and you use any means necessary in order to do so. That's why you get this, and you get this. And all of this could be avoided if you just stuck to the facts. And you stopped projecting. Stop projecting onto us and to me what it is that you do.
Need the news, not projection, or it's gonna